So what I'm doing now is I'm attaching these white doodads. This is the problem I'm having. This thing is just a few thousandths of an inch thick, this plastic, and that's probably why it fails for everybody. And it's really, really heat sensitive. So I've got the heat gun on low temperature, and hopefully so far I've not got any distortion going on. And if I do, then I'm going to have to make the part out of 3D, which I really don't want to have to do if I don't have to. So I'm just sort of tack welding these things just to try and get them secure enough so I can get some clay in there so I can get a good seal ready for the mold. All right, folks, so this is that section done. It's a pretty good seal. That's what it looks like inside. I know it's a mess, but you try and get as much glue in there as you possibly can, because the last thing you want is these coming off when you put in the clay on to seal these joints. Anyhow, now I'm going to make up these side pieces for the exhaust, and then we should be able to start mounting this. All right, this is part 2 of the cowl mold. So we're just going to give it a light waxing. Again, this paint is just flaking off. Nothing I can really do about it. I don't even want to try to strip it, because I'm sure I would have more problems stripping it than what it's worth. So we'll just sort of do the best we can, then we'll polish the mold up. And I'm just going to get some fresh clay for this. And this is the clay I use. It's ashless clay, or I should say sulfur-free. Doesn't dry. I've had some of this stuff, well, not this particular one, but the original one I bought when I first molded the Eurofighter or the T-20, I can't remember which now. Gosh, that must be 12 years ago, maybe 13 years ago. And I could still use it to this day, but when I was doing the Tucano, I decided it was time just to buy all fresh material. So we'll continue around the perimeter of this thing. I'm trying to soften the clay up. I'm just using the heat from my hand. It's about, I think 90, 95 in my shop right now. It's kind of hot. But we'll just carry on. Yeah, this piece is just crap to work with. See, I usually make all my own plugs, so I know how much strength to put in them. And this is just not one of mine. So, but you know, you can use pretty much anything. You just have to find workarounds. So I'm using my credit card blank and coming along. First, I'm just going to sort of push it on an angle so the clay works its way in to the plug, you want to call it that, or the part. And the paint's just coming right off. As soon as I touch that stuff, it just comes off. This is such a shoddy manufactured part. I mean, I've just got to say, it's terrible. And that's why I don't buy planes. I make my own, because I got so fed up with just the crap you buy and you pay a lot of money for now, that it just wasn't worth my time. So yeah, I prefer to just make my own stuff. But yeah, this is not the way one would normally want the plug to be going. Like I say, it's a one-shot deal, and there's no way, because of this thing being so flimsy, that I'll ever be able to remove it to rework it. So it's a one-shot and hope for the best type thing. Wax in there. The nice thing about this wax, it also removes the clay real nice. like that. It just sort of kind of waters it down in a way and leaves a fairly decent job. I think I've kind of got away with this so far. Let's just hope I can do the other one. So I'm trying not to push, because if I push too hard, this Q-tip is just going to undercut underneath and give me a negative relief, which I don't want. Okay, so I've got a second wax on, so while it's curing or hardening up, this is the PVA that I use. I've used it for years, it works good. I'm sure there's lots of other ones around. But this is what I do. This is just a cheap Arbor Freight gun, I should say. I'm just going to pour about 1 inch in there. And then I'm just going to thin it very slightly. So in this case, I'm just going to spray a bit in. That should be enough. And then we'll give it a little mix up. So we'll just give it a little mix. I've run some water through the gun, made sure it's clear before I go and do this, because sometimes the guns are a little clogged from the last use, even though you clean them. And I'll power up the compressor, and then we'll finish the polishing, and then shoot the PVA. Okay, here's a really good tip for you. This plug is so thin, in my opinion, it's just badly made part. It's substandard as far as quality, I think. This section here was so thin, I mean, you could blow on it and it would move in. And that's probably because of the vacuum forming process and the fact that the ABS or whatever it is, plastic was so thin to begin with, that it stretches and really deforms and becomes super, super thin. So I had a big undercut here, and I found that during my waxing process. I don't touch that because it is just wobbly. So what I did, and you can do this with any mold or finished part that you're trying to lay up, if say there's damage to the mold, a big chip came out of it. In the past, I've used the clay to fill the void, let's say, or the crack or whatever it is, and just blend it with a bit of wax on your finger. That's what I've done here. So I've blended all this section as thin as I can into the original plug. So it now becomes a positive relief. So I don't have any undercut, which would have been a negative relief and would have trapped the mold and any parts that I was laying up, because the mold would have that included into it. So don't be afraid of using the clay. It works great. All right, so now it's time just to shoot the PVA on. So a quick blow off. All right, so biggest thing I need is to get the PVA into these cracks. So I'm going to go left to right this way. So that's the PVA on. I'm just going to check that I got full coverage with my handy dandy light here. I've put it on a little heavier than I would normally do, and that's because I'm trying to just get a little bit of fill on where those paints came off. Make sure everything's good. Alright, so I think I'll just hit that with the heat gun from a distance just to get it to settle off quick. And then we'll make a tool coat up. Well guys, I almost screwed up. I completely forgot to put my tire valve in. So what I've done is I've taken a regular tire valve and I've run it across the bandsaw, then onto the sander to get the bottom as flat as I possibly can. just a regular valve. The core has been taken out. And how am I going to fix this? Because now I have PVA all over the place. So what I'm going to do, I need to put it in this area here. So I want it on the highest point. So hopefully I'm going to put it right in this corner so it'll blow down, release that, theoretically anyhow. So PVA being waterproof, I can just basically take it off where I need to. And hopefully I can then use some tacky tape or glue or whatever. I think I'll try and just CA it on. I just need to get it in this position here. So just being very gentle. I'll use one more Q-tip, but just a little bit of water this time. And just getting rid of it. So that should be pretty dry in a couple minutes, and then I can just CA this tire valve in place. I'm going to set it back from the lip there because obviously that would cause me a problem. And then we'll mix up our tool coat and go for it. Okay, so the tire valve is CA'd. Don't have to worry about if you block the hole because you can just re-drill that through later. So now I just have to get a little bit of PVA around the area. Trying not to get too much on. And I just want to make sure that we don't have any sticky. So that should be good enough there. Alright, here's another tip. This filler, it's some kind of glass beading, I guess, I don't know. You see how lumpy it is? That's how it came from the manufacturer. I think this one has some kind of additive they put in because it feels kind of weird. But anyhow, you need to get the majority of those lumps out, if not all. So what I do is I just put it in an old plastic container. I've got a magnet inside. You can use a weight or anything, you know, a couple of nuts and bolts, whatever. And shake it up and keep turning it. And that should get rid of the lumps. Okay guys, it's tool coat time. So how do we do this? Well, I'm just using the regular epoxy. My epoxy goes 2 to 1. So I'm just mixing up about 1.5 ounces, which should be plenty for this plug. And if you screw it up, you can always do it again, I guess. So what I do is I'm going to put just, where am I? Oh, here we go. I'm just going to put in 1.5 ounces about, I guess, 5% of cotton flock. You don't really need the cotton flock, but I like to use it because I've got it. Then I'll take, in this case, about 15% of aluminum powder. This is super thin, super fine, I should say, aluminum powder. And you mix it up real good. You don't want any clumps of this stuff. So that's what it's looking like so far. So once I've got that, then I'm gonna add some graphite dry lubricant. This makes the mold slippy. I should say slippier. And you put about, say, 10% of that in. And that'll turn everything black. Which is good, because then you'll be able to see what you're doing when you're laying up. So in this case, it's real dark gunmetal grey. So we got that all mixed up now. And then we'll go on to the filler. This is silica filler. This is the one I showed you where we de-lumped it. We do a little bit at a time. because we want to get any lumps that might be sitting around in there out. And now we're going to thicken this up to something like a thick mayonnaise. Or I guess a salad cream if you're from Europe. I think that's what they call it. And I really have to mix this real good. Then I'm going to leave it to just sit for a few seconds, just to soak up any resin. And in between that soaking up, if you didn't see my tips and tricks video where I have about 20 composite tips and tricks, one of them is when you're using these brushes, cut across the end and make it square like that. Then pull as much of any loose bristles out that you can, because you don't want them to get on your mold. And you just go a little thicker. If you over thick it, you can always add just a tiny bit of resin. You don't want it so thick that you drag it on the mold and pull the PVA off. Alright, now that I've got that done, what I'm going to do is actually finish stirring with the brush itself. Because I want to get any lumps that's in there. You're always going to get some kind of, call it contamination lumps, whatever you want to call it. But, is that a bristle? No. There's a bristle. Let's get rid of that guy. And now we're ready to apply. So let me stop the movie and then we'll move the camera. Right, the camera's back in place now. This is the tool coat. And we're just going to basically just very lightly apply it. And I'm going to apply it onto this backer board here, because that will become our, if you will, parting plane. Or in this case, it's not really a parting plane. It's going to be more of a cutting guide when this is laid up. I'll show you all that later on when we get to that stage. You don't want to be gobbing it on, but you do want to make sure you get any air pockets out. So go over it if you have to. See how it's kind of got a lumpy look to it? Don't be panicking, that's okay. It's just the nature of the beast. And I'm working my way from the bottom up in this case, because I don't want to trap air pockets by just slapping it on. Now, a lot of guys do 2 coats of this tool coat. In this case, I'm only doing 1. Reason being that it's just a cheap and dirty mold. Probably only going to be used once, maybe twice if somebody breaks a plane. And maybe someone will buy these, I don't know. But anyhow, it's going to be a good mold for quite a few parts, I guess. You don't need to really come up the valve, but while we're doing it, might as well. Now I'm going to just let that settle, make sure there's no air in it. And even though, you know, your tool coat looks a bit lumpy, don't be concerned. I've got to be very light now where that clay was put, because it will form and make a nice smooth voidless surface. And where I built this section up with clay, I'm just basically just kissing it. because it's pretty weak. So I'm not putting it super heavy right now. I will add a little bit in about 5 minutes. But just in case there's any air pockets, I want to give them a chance to get out of there. And then what I'll do is I'll come along a little heavier and then build these hard corners up and around the base here. So we've got a little bit of a chamfer, or a fill I should say, and we'll go from there. Now with my molds, at this point I would hit it with the heat gun, so any trapped air would be blown out. With this one, because the plastic, or the plug as you have heard me bitch and moan, is so crappy, I don't use any heat on it because I think it will just literally drop. So we'll just have to do it the old conventional way. I'll get my handy dandy light and just check, make sure we've got no bristles in there. Alright, so I need to just get that up. There we go. In fact, I think I can come along now. And notice what I'm doing is I'm trying to create the tool coat, because it's nice and thick, to actually fill some of these sharp edges up. That'll make it much easier to lay up. So I'm just going this way, so it's kind of scraping off the brush, just letting the resin fall down by itself, especially in this area where the valve is. It's let's see what's the temperature. So it's right now about 84, 85 degrees Fahrenheit in my shop. That means this is going to take about 3 hours before it's stiff enough to start laying cloth on. So that's going to basically be this afternoon. So that's going to be one horrible layup. Thank God it's a small mold. Normally I start these molds at like 5 in the morning. And that way I've got all day to work on them. But this being a small guy, no big deal. So we'll turn the camera off and let that stiffen up, then we'll get some cloth on it.